All right, we are about to bring on Phil Perry of NBC Sports Boston. Phil, how you doing tonight? Thanks for joining us.
What's up, boys? I'm doing great. I'm ready to put the draft to bed after just putting my kids to bed. And this was like a lot of fun. This weekend was like the most logical draft I feel like the Patriots have had in years, maybe. So we don't have to sit here and kick around why they picked somebody nobody's ever heard of in the second round, which I think is a positive. I'm taking that as a positive.
Yeah, I did want to shout out our sponsor, Five Horizons. One more time, go to fivehorizons.agency. But yeah, what were your overall thoughts on the draft? I already threw out the take that we've been covering the team for about the same amount of time. This is the best I've felt about a Patriots draft on paper, immediately post-draft, since I've been covering the team. So where do you stand on everything they did?
Yeah, I feel the same way, Doug. Honestly, I felt a little uneasy. We do the draft grades in real time.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there giving them A- and A's, and I think maybe there was a B+ mixed in the first 2 days, but it was like through those first 2 days, it was weird.
Yeah.
How strongly I was grading each and every one of their picks. I'm not used to that. And it's not like that doesn't happen every year. Like 2022, I think we all in real time were kind of wondering what was going on. And so, that was looking back, I actually feel pretty good about the in real time grades. And everybody knows that's an exercise in wanting to, hate yourself, months later. But that one actually turned out pretty okay. Yeah. And this one, I just feel like they had a plan. Clearly, they wanted to surround their young quarterback with talent. They protected him with 2 offensive linemen that I'm very high on, and I know people throughout the league have been as well. And you got him 2 really explosive weapons. And my favorite pick maybe of the weekend was a second-round pick in TreVeyon Henderson. But Kyle Williams going in the 3rd round, that made a lot of sense to me too. If you're looking to get more explosive, you want to get guys that can take it to the house with any given touch. Those are maybe 2 of the best guys in the draft class for that. So, and then you get good value on guys like Joshua Farmer and Braden Swinson late. So I thought from start to finish, maybe the long snapper pick aside, I thought it was a really strong weekend for them.
So somehow we've already spent 30% of this podcast on Julian Ashby, just because it kicked off with Danny Kelly and Danny Heifetz, who cannot get enough of that. So we will skip the long snapper pick and remind people, if you want to get your question answered by me, Doug, Phil, we have Sam Munson and Steve Palazzolo coming up a little bit later. $10, super chat, donate, whatever you want. You get a raffle ticket for a Patriots signed football. So what else is most interesting to you about this? Like, we can do favorite pick. We've all done the grades, this and that. We talked about Will Campbell and his arms for 4 months. But like Phil Perry's favorite thing about the draft or something around it was blank.
Well, I love the pick of Jared Wilson because I think the center position gets a little underrated. And maybe that's because we've been kind of spoiled in New England where, David Andrews has been at it for so long and just given them such stability there. And I know he's missed time in the last few years and maybe it's become more apparent to people just how important it is to have that position well stocked. But they did a good job. I mean, when Andrews was out the first time around, and they had Ted Karras to lean on. I mean, you had a high caliber, high quality guy to turn to, and Dan Copen for years. And, even Brian Stork is here for 1 year and they go and they win a Super Bowl. So I just feel like that position gets a little, it goes a little under the radar, just how critical it is to have people there who can do the job, not only mentally, but physically too. And I think this guy's such a freak in Jared Wilson. I mean, I just can't get over the fact that he's 110 pounds heavier than Xavier Restrepo, a receiver who's going to play professional football. And he ran a faster 40 time. He ran a 4.8, 4.40, and Xavier Restrepo ran a granted glacial 4.85 40 time for a receiver, but still, like, that is just remarkable athleticism to me. And he played a lot of soccer growing up. And I'm not a scout, but it makes sense. The guy has pretty good feet and he's a pretty good athlete. So, I look at him and I wonder, there was an interesting question posed tonight on Early Edition about whether or not we could see Jared Wilson actually excelling at his position in a way that maybe Will Campbell doesn't. Just because there's been so many questions about, is he going to even stay a tackle? Does he become a guard? And I really like Will Campbell. I thought they should have, it's been months. And I feel like since I have started to feel as though they should take Will Campbell, and they did, and good for them. That was the easy pick to make, in my opinion, and the right pick to make. But is there a world in which Jared Wilson, because he's so athletic, he's a 21-year-old early declare from Georgia, like those guys are usually pretty freaky. Is there a chance he ends up like a top 5 center in this league someday based on the physical qualities almost alone? Whereas, Will Campbell, I don't know if anybody's necessarily projecting that for him at left tackle. It's like, well, he could be a solid, like 10-year in the league left tackle. And, if he's Matt Light, to me, that's a good pick at 4, even though Matt Light was a 2nd-round pick. But I don't know if we would ever say Matt Light was like consistently a top 5 tackle in the league. He made an all-pro team, I think, in 2007. And maybe made a Pro Bowl 1 year outside of that 2007 year.
Brian O'Neill, he plays right tackle for the Vikings. Phil has been my very late. Like I was late to the Brian O'Neill comparison, but elite athlete better, as Doug informed me on my own show on Saturday, than Will Campbell is. But like the arm length wingspan is comparable. So if you're looking for some guy who makes 2 Pro Bowls and he was a 2nd-round pick, but similar athletic profile and shortcomings, like you can do that. It's happened. His name is Brian O'Neill. He just plays the right side and he plays in Minnesota.
So, like, if that's what he is, and Jared Wilson's a top 5 center, like, first of all, your line is in great shape for a long time. But, like, I think that might be Wilson's ceiling because he does meet just about every metric physically. I mean, for Campbell, to me, the ceiling is like Rashawn Slater. Rashawn Slater is 33-inch arms and plays left tackle, and he actually plays it so well. They drafted a prototypical left tackle a couple of seasons ago in Joe Alt, and they made him play on the right side because they've got this other guy who's doing a damn good job on the left side. So, Will Campbell to me is a really special athlete. I don't know if he'll hit that ceiling. I think Slater's already made 2 Pro Bowls. So I don't know if he'll get there, but in terms of some of the measurements and the athletic traits, I think that would be sort of what you're hoping for if you're a Patriots fan from Will Campbell.
Yeah, it is funny because obviously left tackle has so much more positional value than running back or center. But I think a case to be made that, like, in a vacuum for those positions, TreVeyon Henderson and Jared Wilson might actually have more upside for their positions than Will Campbell does. So that's an interesting point. The other thing with Jared Wilson, and I won't go long on this, but it's unfortunate the way the timing worked because obviously you can't predict who you wind up with in the draft. But like if the Patriots had known that they were going to wind up with Jared Wilson, don't you just not move on from David Andrews? Like, don't you not do the whole Garrett Bradbury thing? And don't you just like let that be a smooth transition from David Andrews to Jared Wilson? Obviously it didn't work out that way, but it's kind of unfortunate that it didn't and that they couldn't predict that they'd get this guy in the draft.
Yeah, it's just strange. I don't know. I would agree with that. That feels like it makes a lot of sense to me, Doug. Right. It just feels as though the team was just really wanting to move on from him. Yeah. I mean, they didn't know that Garrett Bradbury was going to, even be available to them. Yeah. They were ready to go into the draft with, I guess, Ben Brown as their projected starter at center. So it just feels as though, and same is true with the long snapper pick. I don't know if you guys have talked about the Joe Cardona era, but it just feels like they are just moving on from just about anybody in that locker room that had significant ties to the old regime. So I'm not sure they would have changed their ways there, but that might be, to me, the Wilson pick might be the best value of the weekend. I think Swinson, you could certainly make the argument there too. To me, the most fun pick and the guy that I think he's got a chance, guys. This might be my hot take of the night here. I think TreVeyon Henderson has a chance to be in the conversation for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Ooh, wow.
I think he's that good. I think his role will be that significant right away. Ramondre Stevenson, we know, has a fumbling problem. I don't think TreVeyon Henderson is necessarily going to be their 3-down back to start, but I think he's going to get a lot of work. I think they're going to spread it out a lot. They're going to be in a lot of passing situations. They could be down in a fair number of games here. I know some people are projecting them to make the postseason. I'm not quite there yet, but they're going to be down. They're going to have him on the field, and I think he's just such a weapon. He's just so explosive, and even when you do hand it off to him, I think, Dane Brugler had a great note in the Beast that I think it was like over a fifth of his carries went for 10 yards or more. I mean, like something absurd like that. And again, he's making a jump from college to the pros, and it'll be a little bit different, but he's so fast. He's physical enough. I mean, he's more than physical enough in pass protection. So again, I think he's going to be on the field a ton. And, you put all the running back catches together last year between Stevenson and Gibson and others in that room. And I'm not saying he'll get them all, right, but Drake May threw it a bunch to the running back last year. And so if that happens again this year, I think his numbers could be pretty good. And so, there's that Travis Hunter guy in Jacksonville who I think is a hell of a player, and he's probably the front runner, and with good reason. But I think Henderson could surprise some people and get a lot of work and be really productive.
Let's get a super chat question in here real quick. Roy Brady, good luck with the fundraiser. Do you guys think Jalen Polk will have a rebound this year? We can touch on this quickly because we talked about him a little bit. I mean, my take on this is that if the front office and if the coaching staff had a ton of faith in Jalen Polk, I don't know if you draft Kyle Williams in the 3rd round. I think that you bank on Jalen Polk to be a guy who takes a big leap this year. And the fact that they did still draft Kyle Williams that early, I don't think they're banking on it. I know some people within the building still like Jalen Polk. They think he might be better in the slot. So maybe we'll see some more inside snaps for Jalen Polk. I definitely think there's a possibility he can do it, but it doesn't feel like anyone is banking on that right now.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I think it would be irresponsible to bank on it. Like, just based on what you saw last year and based on, quite frankly, how you saw him handle a tough situation, right? I think that was the biggest piece of it. I think that's what surprised people most in the building was he was going to be this dog for them. He was going to do all the little things. He was going to do the dirty work, and he was going to be a pro from day one. And I'm not saying he was a negative influence or anything like that, but I think just they were surprised at how he handled his own version of adversity last season. Right. And so I don't know. Can he climb his way out of that? Sure. I would say it's a possibility. My guess, he's going to be on the he's a 2nd round pick. My guess is they're not going to get rid of him. Like Duke Dawson, I think, was the last time we saw a 2nd round pick not make the team going into his 2nd year, if I have that right. So we have seen that before too. But I think I like your idea, Doug, about putting him in the slot, because Josh McDaniels is going to want those guys inside to block. Yeah. And while I think Pop Douglas satisfies a lot of what McDaniels has looked for in the past in terms of being able to get open early and run those little option routes and having the kind of juice to be able to do that sort of stuff, I don't think he's blocking anyone. Like, he's just not built for that. He is what he is in terms of his size. And the comps for Polk coming out of school, I don't know, what you guys heard talking to people, but I remember a year ago at this time, everybody saying he's Jacoby Myers.
Right.
He's Jacoby Myers. So, like, okay, be Jacoby Myers in the Josh McDaniels offense. That was one thing that I found interesting, and I'd love to hear you guys on the Kyle Williams pick, because that was one thing I found interesting, and it's a second guess that I have. With Jalen Knoll still on the board, who to me is a more polished player, and that's sort of, the description that I heard. More of a true slot, maybe more of a polished player, more of a classic slot that Josh McDaniels would use in his offense with the 4.39 speed on top of it, whereas Kyle Williams is more of an outside receiver and super fast in his own right, better after the catch. It's a really interesting comp because they're like really similar in terms of their sizes and their frames, but they're very different players. They came out of this draft without to me, like a defined Josh McDaniels slot. So is it Pop? Is it Jalen Polk? Is it Efton Chisholm? Like, who the hell knows? Like, I would love for that to happen. I love watching the 5 minutes I've watched of Efton Chisholm. He looks like a hell of a player, and could be a lot of fun in this offense. But that was one thing I thought they might try to draft this year, and they didn't. And so I was curious if you guys felt as though like the Williams pick is going to change the offense, if it's going to be as productive as people are hoping for. Because we just, since Randy Moss, we just haven't seen like a burner on the outside, really dominate in this Josh McDaniels offense.
Efton Chisholm, by the way, his 40 about as fast as Jared Wilson. So put him in the 4.8 club, as we were talking about Restrepo earlier. Look, Williams was my favorite pick of their entire class. And it's just a profile of a player that you haven't seen it work in the Josh McDaniels offense. I think the McDaniels offense would have worked, frankly, better if you had a separator on the outside that was that consistent against man-to-man coverage and then brought speed to take the top off the defense. His release package is really encouraging to me, off of the line. And there's stuff in between in the route, maybe at the top of the route that he needs to sort through. But there's just a guy that if he gets it early, he'll be fine at least the rest of the rookie season. So I just like that they have options. Like Jalen Polk can't totally bank on his draft status. And people forget he had a good training camp, decent preseason last year. That's not enough to give you cause for hope. But they have options where if Kyle Williams struggles, hey, we'll go to that guy. And Kayshon Boutte's still hanging around. So we'll see. But I love the Williams pick, and I hope he succeeds because I think he's got the highest ceiling out of anyone I just listed.
We're going to bring in Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson, two of my favorite guys I worked with at PFF right now. But Phil, I did still need someone donate $20. Money for Cancer to encourage Phil to recreate his draft drunk long snapper in the 7th rant. Even if it's brief, I think we just need this because someone did donate the money to hear it.
Yeah. So what happened was Tom Curran and I, our good friend Tom Curran, we were podcasting before the very end of the draft, and Curran saw that they drafted a long snapper. He goes, "Okay, there's your long snapper. That's the old Bill Belichick memorial pick. You take a long snapper. He's from Vanderbilt. Bill was, grew up in, was born in Nashville, Tennessee. I think that's the connection for Bill." And I said, "Wait, hold on. We're not just moving on from that. Can I be angry about this for a second? Like, we're all sitting around following all these picks. It's very late on day 3. I mean, like the draft is interminable enough as it is. So we're going to sit around and we're going to watch a long snapper get drafted at the end. And no disrespect to the guy they chose or his family. Like, congratulations to him, Mazel Tov. But I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the best available and like, Steve, Willie Lampkin's available. What are we doing? Not drafting Willie Lampkin. We're drafting a long snapper? What are we? We're not drafting Holland Pierce? Is that the monster? He's like
Rutgers,
a 7-foot tackle from Rutgers. Like, we're drafting a long snapper here? Really? This is what we're doing? That felt a little too Belichickian for me. So that was essentially the rant. That was like a 30-second version of it.
Perfect.
Solid.
Well, thank you, Phil. We're going to get you out of here. Thanks so much for coming on and joining us. It's always great to have you. So thanks a lot.